Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the ECL re-preview with me, Ornlu, and Roach. And
Hello, everyone.
yeah, go say hi. Introduce yourself, Roach.
Well, yeah. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in again. I introduced myself the first time we did this, but for anyone who's around here and doesn't know me yet, yeah. Okay, I'm a bit loud, actually. Okay. Um,
Yeah, I can turn you
but
down in TeamSpeak.
yeah, I'll just let you do that. And yeah, Nimino, last time you were promised a Roach webcam. I actually ordered the webcam, but it didn't arrive until today. I didn't get it yet. Uh, but it's on its way, so next time should be there. But yeah, for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm quite active in the community and was asked to do the podcast with Onlu. Was very happy to do so, and
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm glad you're here, Roach. Last one was fun. Uh, Excited for this one. Gonna start by recapping the 3v3 Middle East tournament, which just concluded last week, and then we will go ahead and preview the ECL East Asia 2v2, which is in a couple weeks, and or no, next week, my bad, and do some Q&A at the end. And yeah, so let's switch over to the bracket.
okay. Seems like we still have some sound issues. Is it better now? I'm not quite sure. I can still turn myself down a bit, or Onlu does that.
Yeah.
If you could give us feedback after I said that.
Naming it ECL review. You can blame that on Zach. Okay, I'll.
So louder. Okay.
Yep. Sorry, guys. Technology and all that stuff.
Okay. So it
Uh,
seems like
yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I'm quiet at max volume. Guess I'll
I
just have to speak loud.
I guess. So weird sometimes with microphones.
Yeah, it's weird because like on my own uh, OBS, it's like normal, but
Okay, yeah.
oh, there we go. Okay, I should have made myself a little bit louder.
All right.
Awesome.
Hopefully it should be fine.
Sorry.
Then.
Anyway, getting to the brackets. Brazucas versus SY. Not a whole lot to talk about there, Roach. Want to give us a quick summary?
Yeah, just very pretty one-sided. It was pretty clear that SY or SY were the favorites, and we could see it in the games. They did win them convincingly in the end. Um, then we had Frantic versus Heresy, and those games went differently than expected, actually. Frantic was the very clear favorite here, being third in the whole standings against the eighth place. But we had actually three games, and the last one, a pretty good one at that. We will get back later to that game in the end. Yeah,
Yeah,
what about the lower part of the bracket?
yeah. So you had AM versus VNA, the two middle teams. It was pretty close on paper, and it was a fairly close series overall. But obviously, AM, I think, decisively the better team there and was able to take the win. I think the games they did win were pretty convincing. So yeah, I think definitely deserve to move on. And then Secret versus Suomi. We'll talk about that Arabia game later. But yeah, Suomi just really showing their raw mechanical skill right there, and really just dominating Secret to get to the semifinals.
Yeah. Also shown that as a team they can really perform, that they played for quite some time together already, and they are indeed very well trained playing with each other. Then we obviously had the semifinals, and SY versus Frantic. And SY versus Frantic was a bit Well, in the end, you can see 3-1 for SY there. But we did have some interesting games here. Well, sometimes they went for quite a different approach, actually, but it was in general very aggressive games. I mean, they did wall behind like you expect from Chinese players, but both teams have also players that are fine with going forward, going for towers, going for man-at-arms, and getting into a messy game. And that's what we got in some of those games.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that it was noteworthy that in the last encounter in 3v3, Frantic did beat SY.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a reversal right there of fortunes. But I think, despite the very messy games, I think SY did a really good job sort of coming out of the mess and still being in a good solid position, whereas they just seem to be one step ahead of Frantic in getting out of those really messy games. So well played to them. And then AM versus Suomi was, yeah, that was another really close series.
Yeah,
Roach.
I actually turned
Whoa.
my
Where did
mic
Roach go?
Oh, don't anyone?
Why is Roach quiet?
I'm sorry.
I didn't change anything there.
Hi, hello.
Oh god.
Right back. Okay, you can hear me again?
Oh god, that was, yeah, what happened there?
Okay, I tried to adjust the mic and I went from 100% to 80% and suddenly I'm gone.
Oh, okay.
Let me try a bit. Is it better now? I'm a bit quieter now for people on the stream.
Okay. Rip.
Those technicalities here.
Yeah, a bit unfortunate. I've made myself pretty much as loud as I can. Um,
I
yeah,
I can still try to adjust my mic a bit more, but maybe not go down to 80% again. Maybe stay.
I mean, you sound fine on my end,
Okay, okay.
but yeah.
All right.
Okay, so Roach,
Let's
AM
let's
versus
just keep it
Swami.
that way.
What did you think of AM versus Swami?
Yeah, really, really high, um, yeah, just high standard overall. Everyone played really well. It went to 5 games, obviously, and it could have gone either way, definitely. We had a bit of a different role for Max in this series.
Yeah, definitely.
Usually, you see more being if it works out for them, being the pocket player, being the macro player, and then carry his team. And this time, he went more for the weird. I go forward, I tower, I delay everyone. Then I'll be slower to Imperial Age, but I take 2 players down with me, and that was basically the idea for Max this time. Went for that approach twice on Hideout and on, well, Mediterranean as well, landing with villagers right away between the pocket and the flank. So very interesting strategies there. So definitely something they prepared for.
Yeah, definitely. And it just seemed like AM had the slight edge there. I mean, obviously that's reflected in the score, but they got to the finals, and man, was that finals, I think, very close, very interesting. Yeah, the last couple games were kind of not that great, but especially game two, I think, on the Hideout was over almost 3 hours long or whatever, and that was that
Mm-hmm.
was that was quite the game, and yeah, definitely I think showcased the sheer depth that both of these teams have.
Yeah, I feel like with Hideout, as I said before, Max going forward and trying to delay 2 players there, MBL and Leary, I think. And then on Medi, you could see that you just had Suomi well prepared there with strategies. And then Tri River was a lot clearer for AM there. So I feel like maybe on more standard maps, it's more their, more open maps, it's more their kind of game to play. Then Oasis in the end. very similar. Both teams went for the sling on Mayans and then kind of fast Imperial approach. I feel like I would have liked to see the game play out with both of the teams having Mayans in the pocket, because Max was flank for their team and he had to go forward with towers to actually um, prevent walls, right? So his fast Imperial Age was just slower. And then MBL did an amazing job walling behind there and making sure he couldn't get in, while on the other side, Leary just went through everyone with his plumed archers there.
Yeah, you have this sort of, I think, important dynamic in a team game where MBL did a really good job of dying slowly. Like, it was just
Exactly,
layer
yeah.
after layer of wall. And it's kind of, I think, maybe a little bit underrated in these sorts of team games where there was no way in hell that, MBL was going to hold off uh, against Max right there. But,
Yeah.
he just bought enough time that, his teammate could come in and destroy
Yeah.
everybody.
And he wasn't even losing that many villagers. He actually kept booming behind that. So in the end, he actually went up to Imperial Age himself with 120 villagers or so. So really good job there. Yeah, just overall, it was a really good series to watch, I think. Not for the individual games, but for the whole series. Probably my favorite series from that stage.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's worth talking about like what this win meant because this was AM's first win. I'll actually even bring up the standings here.
Hmm.
Um, so AM with that win will cement themselves in fourth place, closing in onto Frantic for that third place spot. But obviously SY still chugging along just behind Secret, who obviously went out really early on in that tournament and was definitely, I think, a notable result there is that obviously Secret, the big favorites to win everything, uh,
Hmm.
losing 2-0 to Suomi there definitely allowed, I think, the other teams to make it a bit more competitive in the overall standings to see who will be going to the offline finals. Because after this round, or this upcoming round of 2v2 East Asia, it will be the exact halfway point, I believe, of ECL. So teams are really going to start to want to get some points, bazookas.
Yeah, yeah, that stage made it a lot closer. I mean, before we had 20 points for SY and 28 for Secret. Now they're only 2 points behind them. And obviously, Aftermath now getting in AM, now getting in hitting distance. So, well, that's what we were hoping for from the start of the tournament, right? A very, very close and competitive tournament. So it's good to see that even if you're, for example, a Secret fan, um, you need to see that this makes the whole tournament a lot more, yeah, competitive and
Just exciting
just
to
exciting
watch.
overall. Yeah.
And of course, remember, guys, the top two teams will go to the offline finals. So that is what these teams are building up for. It's only the top two. So obviously, it's very sort of competitive for that top spot. And teams are going to really, I think, especially if you're in that 3 through 5 to 6 range, really going to, I think, want to get some wins in these upcoming tournaments to sort of position yourself to get there in the end.
Yeah. Well, but I do have to say, considering that this was such an important, um, well, part of the event, so important points for Aftermath there, and what we didn't mention yet, one extremely, extremely great game in the grand final. We will come back to that later on again. I do have to say that overall, I wasn't so impressed with the final series. It was a good series still, but as I said before, SY versus Suomi, no, AM versus Suomi, I like a bit more. We had
Yeah,
some good games in SY versus AM, but especially the last two ones and also the Mediterranean game, were very one-sided and fairly fast over as well.
yeah, definitely. Sometimes this happens in big finals. It's just one team just has the number of the other team, and can kind of lead to a bop, even if the series like numerically was close, 3-2.
Mhm.
Other than, of course, that epic hideout game being the big exception, the games were fairly one-sided.
Yep.
Um, and other than that, though, do you think there were really any standout teams in terms of performance this go around, or lack
Well,
thereof?
definitely Heresy. In the sense that it was standing out because no one expected them to, in the games I thought, or at least myself, I didn't expect them to perform that well in the games they performed well in well, only 2 games, but they did a really good job there. And well, then just AM finally getting their win, and rightfully so. They played really good on a high level. Then, especially once we talked about the hideout game, I think it's impressive if you consider they were 1-0 up in that series. Um, then they lost 2 games to SY, and then they had the mindset to come back from that and win 2 games in a row in a really impressive fashion. So I think that's really worth to mention.
Yeah, and I think it demonstrates that AM is kind of like on the rise as a team, I would say. Obviously, they
Hmm.
are a very new team. They have a bunch of young players that are all very talented. But I think that the more and more they play together, and especially in these high pressure situations, the better I think they will perform over time. So I'd actually think they're possibly a really good contender to make it to the offline finals.
Yeah. Also, before we always talked about, or just in general, people said, okay, AM, they just have very good mechanics. If it's on Arabia, they're really strong, but sometimes they're just lacking strategies. And in some of the series, they really showed that they actually prepared good strategies. And for example, in Sunburn, they
Oh,
were
yeah.
really well prepared, um, just outplaying SY there by quite a bit. And I think that's something to keep in mind as well, that it's not just the mechanics, but now they actually were well prepared as well.
Yeah, definitely. But I think with that, we can move on to our favorite games of the 3v3.
Yep.
Oops.
Well, first of all, the Frantic versus Heresy game on Oasis. We had 3 games, as we said before. The first game was like everyone expected. Frantic killed Heresy really fast. Then the second game, the more or less comeback for Heresy. Really fast game on their ends on Dry River. Just showed they had a sling strategy prepared, which we found out later on that is the strongest strategy for the map, it seems.
We'll talk about how these maps played out later, but yeah, turns out
Yeah.
Indians and slinging them real good on Dry River. So
Yeah.
the teams that kind of adopted that was pretty good. But obviously, as you're seeing the slideshow over here of screenshots, yeah, game number 3 on Oasis was definitely a heartbreaker if you're a Heresy fan. That hole in the wall was pretty unfortunate to say, but I think that still it was a really close. Like it could have gone either way for the longest time.
Yeah. Um, just at the start, really, really well done. Nearly holding against him there was important. Then on the other side, really aggressive. The fight Matthias against Vivi there, both going really aggressive. And then just a strategy choice to go to sling mines as well to fast Imperial Agent. Eddie did a good job going through Tim's base and pushing forward, but Tim at the same time did a really good job walling behind all of that.
It's what he does,
Um,
man.
yeah, how he does exactly, and uh, even after they couldn't get in fast enough, Eddie and Matthias did such a good job fighting there. But then, as you said, the whole Cavalier and later Paladin came into Neely's space, and he was thrown so far back, and then he was just couldn't contribute as much as Tim could once he finally reached Imperial Age and could add his own cavalry paladin.
Yeah,
and Frank Paladin at that.
like it looked like the push from Eddie with his plumed archers looked like, okay, maybe they can break Frantic before Tim gets the time to sort of reboom. But
Hmm.
man, they just bought just enough time for Tim to sort of re-enter the game and really just totally stop Heresy in their tracks. But I still think that they should have been happy with that game, and I think they were from what I remember. But yeah, that was definitely, I think, a very strong showing for them skill wise and their potential in upcoming events.
Yep, definitely, definitely. Well, and then we had the second game that was a lot, at least at the start, a lot less action.
Oh yeah.
Um, and that was the Secret versus Somi game you talked earlier about. Um, Standard on basically on Arabia, and that game is maybe not so interesting because it was super long, or we had such big armies clashing all of the time, but just the level of play until early Imperial Age was outstanding. The
Oh,
maneuvering of armies, yeah, was just beautiful to watch.
oh yeah. Like I had the pleasure of casting that with Nilly, and it was legit one of the highest level games of Age of Empires I had seen. I watched the rec, I think, 3 times afterwards just to see the game from all the different players' angles. It came down to the civ choice, the strategy choice, and just the raw mechanics and team coordination between the two teams. And I think just really, it has to be said that the standout player in that game and in that series in general was just the Max, right? The dude is
Mhm.
just a machine. It's like he is the barbarian AI in terms of his macro and mechanics, even outdoing Viper.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it yesterday or 2 days ago, and you were pointing me towards looking at the Max and his macro there. And when I did the screenshot for the slideshow, screenshots for the slideshow there, I took a closer look, and it's just impressive. When both of them clicked Imperial Age, he was already 15 villagers ahead or something like that. Then early Imperial Age, he went for some raiding, and suddenly he was 30 villagers ahead, and then starting trade earlier, and he was trade and villagers ahead, and just the production it um, was insanely good. But I think the most interesting part really about the game is feudal age and castle age. Players with their armies dancing around each other, trying not to get caught out, and yeah, it
Yeah,
was just really good to watch.
yeah. Just take if you watch the recording of that game or the VOD of the cast, just look at the army movements between the two teams. Just pretty much the same army compositions, archers and knights, but you just see Suomi able to eke out these little edges here and there, and it's just really a pleasure to watch.
Yeah,
But
indeed.
moving on to our third game, yeah, this one's kind of a no-brainer. It's SY versus AM on Hideout. The game was like 3 hours long. My voice was pretty dead after casting it, but this one was that epic game where you have huge armies clashing nonstop for so long.
Yeah, it was impressive. And especially when you look at the civilizations we had in play here. On one hand side, we had the Britons, Spanish and Mongols. Spanish and Mongols really strong late game. Britons maybe not the strongest, but in early Imperial Age you can do a lot with them. On the other side, you had Persians, Turks, and Mayans. Um, Also strong civs, but you'd expect them in the late Imperial Age to just get rolled over, and they didn't, and it gave us a 3 hour long game that was extremely back and forth and really good. And for quite some time you couldn't say who was going to win or who what. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like one team would be pushing and then the other team would be pushing. And really, I think sort of the decisive moments in that game was obviously the big raid onto the trade of AM.
Yeah.
SY did a really nice job of just constantly keeping their trade safe behind, guess what? Walls. Um,
Yeah.
Turns out walls are pretty good. But that was really impressive play from SY. And I think in particular, I would like to highlight Lix's play that game.
Hmm.
Lix, usually the slinger player, is a little bit more quiet. Obviously they're just slinging, just distributing resources, but how Lick sort of transitioned out of that slinging role into just really holding even 1v2 against fully upgraded Mangudai. Like, I thought that was just really impressive play from him, and he was the one who took out AM's markets in that big raid to begin with.
Yeah, I think I have two things. Like, one thing that was really important as well was that the early Imperial Age push, where Leary basically lost his base, that later on gave SY a lot more wood control, which it came basically down to in the end. Obviously, the trade rate was important, but replenishing all that trade cost AM so much wood, and they couldn't really gather any more wood on their side of the map. So that was quite important. And then I also want to come back to the fact that you said he hold against completely upgraded Elite Mangudai. And afterwards, I was a bit thinking about how that was actually possible with Turk CA, and I actually tried it out, and I think it's interesting to note, or at least to talk about, that that the Elite Mangudai do lose against Turk fully upgraded cavalry archers. Obviously, they get 2 more upgrades, the 20 more HP and an additional armor upgrade. But Mangudai don't win against them anymore, what you would expect. They don't win against Magyar cavalry archers anymore. And then against the generic fully upgraded cavalry archer, they just barely win. So I think it's quite interesting. Obviously, there are so many other boni that they shred through siege, and they are better against melee units, etc. But I think it's something to keep in mind when you pick civs in the future, that Mangudai are not that stronger than cavalry archers anymore, and cavalry archers are cheaper, and you don't need castles for them.
Yeah, and I think it's a factor of both the Mangudai being nerfed, of course, having a frame delay now, making everyone sad, but of course cavalry archers in general being buffed, and then Turk cav archers with their Sipahi unique tech, they can get up to 100 HP, and 100 HP plus 5-6 armor is that's a tanky horse rider, and yeah, really just a amazing game. Definitely recommend that one to watch, maybe on ×2 speed if you're a little stretched for time, but totally back and forth.
Yeah, was really good, and especially having that game, it was, as I said before, super impressive that after such a game and then losing the next game relatively fast, so impressive for AM to come back.
Yeah, and I think they played all the games in one sitting, right? Like, that's
I
what
guess
I heard.
so. Yeah, I guess so. I have no idea, but yeah, then it's even more impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, just fantastic game in that, of course, worthy of a grand finals game right there. But moving on, just want to run through the maps a little bit from the Middle East. Talk about a little bit how they played out, how much they were played at all, and what the maps ended up turning out to be like. So starting here, good old-fashioned Arabia. You can see the Middle East Civ pool civs on the screen. We really didn't see this map much. We just saw, I think, the one game, right, of Secret versus Suomi.
Yeah, I think you're right. Might have been one in the round of 8, but I'm not even sure there was one there. I think you're right. We just saw this one game. Yeah.
I have the stats. I have the power, but I'm pretty sure it was just that one. And I think in general, it's pretty surprising just to see so little of Arabia, because it's kind of the, it's the map, right? Yeah, it was only played the one time. So, yeah, do you think it was just because teams who thought they were at a disadvantage would ban the map, just because they didn't want to get into straight up, normal standard gameplay?
Maybe that, and also it's probably it's part of like two sides of the same coin, basically. That you had teams maybe being afraid to play on Arabia, but at the same time being very prepared and very confident with what they prepared on the other maps. So rather ban Arabia than the other maps they were prepared for.
Yeah, that's definitely.
So I think Yeah.
I think that's a pretty strong possibility, and we already talked about it a little bit with just the one game between SY and Suomi, or not SY, Secret and Suomi, all the S names. But yeah, it was pretty much what we'd expected. Pure, mechanics, total meta comps and civs, and it was just all that. Next map here was Bedouins, which we saw 5 times, according to my lovely stats sheet here. And again, it's pretty much, I think, what you expected. A lot of messy games.
Yeah. Also, not too many new things to see. As we said before, and in our last podcast as well, Bedouins is a very established map already. It's played in so many tournaments. So it basically, it, I think it just came down to the positioning, because with a Nomad map, how messy the games develop to be. For example, the game between SY and AM wasn't that messy because the two teams actually spawned fairly far from each other, and more like in teams. It was more like team together. So we actually had a fairly standard game there as well in the end.
Yeah, and I think, this goes to the whole. This is a very sort of established map in the competitive community, even if it is not technically a standard map. But we saw a lot of mirror civs on this map. So
Hmm.
definitely, I think, very sort of meta. And yeah, just, solid map.
Yeah. And basically it was always, well, Chinese, the additional if you could pick, and then Persians and Ethiopians.
Yep, exactly. I believe.
Some of them at the start picked Britain sometimes, I think.
Yeah, we saw like the Archer Civ was kind of the flex pick, so to say.
Yeah, yeah.
You just pick a good Archer Civ from the Civ pool. But according to my beautiful stats sheet here, yeah, Chinese were picked 10 times in 5 mirror matches. Guess what? Bedouins was played 5 times. So I
Yeah.
think that not only uh, are Chinese really good on this map because, Nomad start and Shorefish and everything, but it's because Indian, sort of the other like top tier Civ for this map, were played on Dry River, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I think that was definitely noteworthy.
Yeah.
But moving on, we have Oasis, which was not in the 1v1 pool. It was just in this 3v3 pool, and it was played 4 times. And I think definitely a lot of memorable games on this map.
Yeah, definitely. And but we saw a trend there as well. I think in the 4 times we saw it, at least 2 times. We're not, if not even 3 times. We saw mains picked and being banned, not banned, being slung actually to Imperial Age, and then trying to, um, yeah, just steamroll the flanks. You can wall this map, but in the 3v3, the distance from the forest in the middle to the edge of the map is quite a bit, so it can be hard to make sure that no one is getting in anywhere.
Especially if you're a hippo.
Especially then. Feels
Rip.
feels nearly, man.
Feels nilly, man. But
That really hurt. Yeah.
yeah, pretty much like you were saying, definitely, I think, was very similar to Hideout and how it played out in terms of both maps being somewhat similarly shaped. It's just Oasis, very sort of defensive map. Your pocket is just so safe that that slinging Mayans with plumed archer push thing is just really strong. So we saw that a lot on this map. Uh, and yeah, I think definitely produced plenty of epic games.
Although I think there's one interesting aspect to the map, and that is because you have such a big distance from the forest to the edge of the map, that the initial part of the game is was often really aggressive actually. So you had a really aggressive part of the game at the start, really early aggression to secure walls, basically secure good positions for the walls. Once that was done, the game came down to a more defensive gameplay in Imperial Age, and then either try to push in with a fast Imperial Age or big armies clashing again.
Yeah, definitely. Almost reminiscent of Black Forest in the early Ville fights to secure walling positions and then a big old
Yeah,
boom fest.
yeah, exactly.
Which, I mean, this is probably the closest we'll get to Black Forest in the map pools in ECL. Maybe I think Clearing is in Europe West, but yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
clearing maybe. Yeah.
very sort of defensive map. Um, But moving along, Dry River. Oh boy, this map. This map has a lot to talk about. It was played 7 times. There were only 7 series in Middle East 3v3. That means Dry River was played in every single series. And yeah, Roach, how did you play this map correctly?
Um, well, uh, sling. That was basically it. You had to sling or you lost. I think there was one game where the winning team didn't sling and it was AM. And they just went full aggression, early on aggression, and punished the open map of the players. And otherwise, it was just always pick Indians because of the showfish bonus. Sling Indians to Imperial Age, have or Castle Age
Yeah, just doing
first,
Castle
obviously.
Age. Hit
Then
the
have
C
them
button.
produce a shit ton of camels, have one archer civ, and yeah,
And
go from there.
yeah. And I think that an important distinction in a lot of these games was the proactive sling versus the reactive sling. It's literally almost as binary as that, where I think the proactive sling always beat the reactive sling.
Yeah,
And yeah, it was a lot of Indians and a lot of camels. And I think that's just kind of disappointing from this map because I feel like it had a lot of potential to have like some
yeah, I
really cool
agree.
like sort of early aggression over the shorefish, but then, big fights in the late game. But it seems like the way that the shorefish work out is it just kind of breaks with Indians.
I'm not even sure if it's the fact that it breaks so much with Indians. Obviously, it is really, really strong, so maybe it is just too strong for Indians. But I think it comes also down to one fact we were talking about before, that in a 3v3 you obviously have a much bigger map than in a 1v1. So the distance between all the players is actually uh, rather big. So with that fact that it took quite some time to get over the map with archer units, for example, because scouts you can wall out, right? Or build spearmen against. But archer units make it harder. And that fact combined with the Indians made it really easy to get the Indians fast to Castle Age. Then you have really strong camels as well. And then the sling also works out so well because the map is that open and because you have to go for shorefish. If you don't go for shorefish anymore, you fall behind so far. So suddenly an Indians player that is in Castle Age can destroy everyone who's at the front gathering shorefish. So that made it just so strong, and I completely agree with you that it was disappointing. I really look forward to the map, and in the end it was my least favorite map to see in a series.
Yeah, me as well. And I think that especially like as Roach was talking about, on top of it, 3v3s just being larger maps in general. This particular map, you spawn in a line, so your flanks aren't actually any closer to each other than the pockets are. So that actually, because then everyone is further away, it just gives the pocket even more room to boom up, or if the slinging players in the pocket, they can just wall up and boom and feel pretty safe in doing so. And especially, I think, in the Suomi secret game on this map, you just really saw the power of like what happens if your Indian player falls just a little bit behind. It just
Mhm.
can really start to snowball out of control. But with that said, Roach, why did we see this map every single series?
That's a good question. I just think because most of the teams found out that Sling works so well, so they wanted to play the map and um, were probably hoping for the fact that their opponents didn't know about the Sling, and it worked out that way for Heresy. Heresy went for a Sling, went for aggression at the start and Sling, and completely destroyed Frantic there that didn't have that. And same for Heresy, not Heresy, Secret. Secret lost to Suomi as well because they went for a reactive Sling and were just behind. So I just think that most of the teams thought they were really well prepared and wanted to have the map in there.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point. Medi is our next map, played 3 times. And I don't know, is there a lot to say about this map, Roach? I mean, I think we saw some pretty, not like bad games, but I think pretty standard meta sort of games. Lots of
Yeah,
Indians, of course.
yeah. I think it's interesting that two of those games actually one of the teams transported right away in Dark Age, transported villagers between the flank and the pocket. build buildings there and harass the pockets. And I think both of the games were against AM, and both of the time AM lost against this.
Maybe that was a specific preparation against AM. Maybe they were weak to that sort of
Maybe it
thing.
was then, yeah.
Which I think in general, AM is a little bit on the weak side to the crazy openings. I mean, just remember Tim versus Leary on Medi back in the 1v1 portion of
Oh,
this
yeah,
tournament. I mean,
definitely.
AM and early landings don't really go too well together. Um,
Doesn't seem that way.
yeah. So I think that's
Yeah.
really all we can say about that map. And Hideout, our next map. This was played 3 times. So this map
Okay.
was actually only played 3 times.
Okay.
But I feel like all those games are very memorable in terms of how they played out. I mean, it's just, it's another really big late game oriented map. I mean, you even have the palisade walls to help you out defend in the early game, so you're sort of missing that early aggression angle that you see on like Oasis. But yeah, what
Mm.
do you think, Roach?
Yeah. Had some good games. I think just because of that, it might be even feel even more like Black Forest, but nah, maybe not. On Oasis, you have to wall, right? So you go for the walls. On Hideout, you don't necessarily have to. We saw sometimes on one side that the team walled off on one side. Elix did that, for example, for a sling. But yeah, provided some good games, definitely. Um, but nothing too special to say about it. I mean, it provided us late games, which is kind of to expected, right?
Oh yeah, and just good games in general. Just fun map.
Yep.
And our last map was probably the maybe even a bigger disappointment than Dry River because we only saw one game on this map,
Yeah.
and
And
yeah,
yeah, very fast game. It
yeah,
came down to strategy basically, and that was one of the last games of the final AM versus SY, and AM just had a way better strategy there.
yeah. I
Sling
mean,
again, yeah.
it's just all about slinging and just totally strategies and gimping your opponents early on. I forget who was flank for SY in the final game, but they were just kind of knocked out of the game right away. And
I think in the final game it was Yinghua on
I
on the
think that
yeah
sounds right. Sounds right.
yeah he was on the flank, then Lux, and then Yo.
Yeah. And Yo just couldn't carry hard enough essentially from the super pocket position. And I think just the biggest shame is that we just didn't see this map enough. Like we just
Hmm.
saw the one game. It's such an interesting, unique map, and for that reason, teams don't want to play it. And that's just kind of unfortunate because I feel like a lot of these more unique, interesting maps don't really get to see the light of day that they may deserve. But
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
oh
I think
well.
it makes it also harder on this map, especially be because of the fact that you have two sides, right? It's hard to say, okay, let's in a team where you maybe they have 4 players available, and then say, okay, let's train a 2v2 against each other. It's maybe not on such a map. Maybe 2v2 is not that different to a 3v3. Maybe they get even 3 players against each other, and then it makes it so much harder though, because they can't really just train, okay, let's go this strategy against this strategy, but you also basically need to see, okay, if I go for my man-at-arms push on the right-hand side, but we go for our scouts on the left-hand side, on the other side of the tree line, how do we defend? How does it work out? Um, so I guess just both sides and which side to focus on makes it a bit harder to really prepare for it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good summary of how difficult it is to prepare for such a out there map. And I guess with that, do you have any sort of final closing thoughts on the Middle East 3v3 tournament before we turn eastward to Asia?
Well, I think we should. Now you bring up the bracket, that's good, but if we do the predictions, I guess we should go back to them.
Oh yeah, my bad. I forgot about that.
Obviously, my predictions were better there because Frantic managed to get to the semifinals, while Secret for You already went out in the round one. So I think that round goes to me. I get 1 point.
Yeah,
or at least
I
5
also get a
points.
point for predicting AM over VNA though, so I think we're even.
Ah, damn it.
Oh man, well we'll see who does better in East Asia.
I guess. Let's see.
So speaking of East Asia, number one segue ever, bringing up the brackets, and thankfully Robo updated them so we get to see not only the teams who are playing, but
Yep.
the or wait,
Players as well.
oh yeah, sorry, my bad. Do the talk about the maps first. That way you know the context in which these teams are playing.
Oh, yeah. It's maybe a good idea.
Yep, Ornlu a pleb can't even read his own run sheet. So anyway, civs are being put up on screen right now, and here we are talking about the maps. So we have Mongolia as the first map, and I would note that the version of ECL or the version of Mongolia that ECL uses is not, I would say, anywhere near as cliff-y as standard Mongolia. So you have, I think, a much more Arabia-esque map, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. It's more Arabia with some additional cliffs than Mongolia with some less cliffs even. It can be rather open sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how well the screenshot we're showing is actually representing it. Because I played it a couple of times in 1v1s, and sometimes you had really, really big stretches of open land and rather hard to wall, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I loaded up the map a few times, just seeing the different generations possible, and it seemed pretty much like Arabia with just maybe a few more cliffs. So I mean, I do think we might be able to see some like Drush fast castles from the pocket, or not pocket from the flank. Maybe see some FCs from the pocket. But I feel like we're just going to be seeing another Arabia clone, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, maybe if they get really lucky, we might see some kind of fast castle. But I don't think so, especially in the 3v3. I feel most of the time
You mean 2v2
Pocket would go. Oh, right.
or 4v4?
Yeah, we are in a 2v2. Well, especially in a 2v2, then not.
Yeah, I think we're just going to be seeing standard sort of archers plus scouts sort of meta.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as likely civs here, probably just going to see good Arabia civs, Mongols, Huns. Yeah, probably a lot of Mongols and Huns.
Mm, I guess then additional. Well, 2v2, we don't need additional civs, right? So
I believe the way 2v2 works is that you have one civ from the civ pool and one civ not from the civ pool.
I thought you actually had both the civs from the civ pool for 2v2. Good thing we're prepared.
Yeah, number one preparation ever. But no, because we saw a lot of Franks Mayans in Africa 2v2, and
Oh,
Mayans weren't in Africa.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
So
You're
yeah,
right.
it's one civ from the
I,
civ pool, one civ not.
because that's what I wanted to go to, that we might see some more Messicivs in there as well, right? If it's Arabia-like, maybe even a bit more walled off, we could easily see mines there or Aztecs.
Yeah, certainly. Next map is Steppe. You might be familiar with this map. It was played in Battle of Africa. It is one of the maps there in that tournament, and is just one of the new maps added in Forgotten, I believe. And I really like the map. It is a nomad start, but you start with all your villagers very close together. Lots of hunt in the middle, and then sort of trees scattered around the edge of the map.
Yeah, I like the map as well, especially that you have basically your own spot. Nomad comes mainly down to you can decide where you put your TC. It's not like you need to run around looking for a spot for a long time. You have your own spot with your own gold, your own stone, your own ore, etc. So yeah, I think it's a good and fair nomad map, and just the fact that you have the additional hunt in the middle, in a very open middle, gives again a lot of space for early aggression, army maneuvering, working together there. So I really like that.
Yeah, you might not be able to tell from the little screenshot here, but the middle is totally open. There are no trees, no hills, no nothing. Um, just a quick correction in chat. No, the 2v2 tournament starts a week from tomorrow.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, week from tomorrow, where these games will be happening. But anyway, I think that again, if Mongolia isn't also in the map pool, I think we'll be seeing a lot of Mongols, Huns, Indians.
Chinese
Oh yeah,
is in the
Chinese.
map pool. Is even in the map in the Civ pool, so we will definitely see Chinese there.
Yeah, Chinese. I think 100% pick rate on this map,
Yep.
guaranteed. Kind of like Bedouins. Just Chinese are just too strong on Nomad starts to ignore. Having 6 villagers means you can get your TC up real quick, and doing that is just so critical. I think on these sorts of Nomad starts, and yeah, I think it should just be a good solid map.
Yep. Then the next map will actually be Salt Marsh.
This is not a solid map in the sort of traditional meta sense.
No, it's not. And I don't think I've ever seen the map played in a team game tournament. I've seen it in some old best of 21s in 1v1s or some old 1v1 tournaments. Back then it was still way less competitive even because sometimes you had fish spawning in your bag. Now at least there isn't any fish for any player, so that can't be happening
Is
anymore.
I loaded up the map a couple times and I got some fish in my
You got some
generation.
fish?
Yeah, I got some
Okay.
fish. So
Oh, that's not good then. We need
yeah,
to talk
this
to
could get
T West, I
real
guess.
crazy, real fast. But it's never like more than like 1 or 2 fish. Um, but yeah, you can see that just in the little map screenshot there. It's very asymmetrical map. So sometimes some people will have lots of water, sometimes people will have very little water. That could be important, even if there aren't fish for wood, especially as the game drags on. And as you can see, all those shallows in the middle of the map means that although maybe going full water isn't really a strategy because there isn't enough fish, it could be seeing some big demo hits.
Yeah. I think in Feudal Age you will see a standard Feudal Age fighting. And then depending if you it really depends on how your land is compared to your enemy's land. If you just have like a small river of shallows to cross to get there, then you will see more land aggression. If there are more shallows in between, then I think from Castle Age onwards, you will see players maybe start to produce some galleys. Because if you can control all the shallows, you can contest a lot of wood as well on the islands.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely be very interested to see how this plays out, especially in a 2v2, because, normally 2v2s are all about the very meta crossbow plus knight sort of thing, but if we do see some players go for water control, definitely should be very interesting. I think we could be seeing civs like Portuguese and Japanese here, obviously just very good. Water civs, I'd say Japanese maybe a little bit more diverse in terms of like good on the sort of hybrid land water maps.
Yeah.
But
although you need to keep in mind all the water bonuses for Japanese with the stronger fishing ships and faster working fish ships obviously don't apply.
Unless you get fish, in which case it does.
Yeah. I guess, yeah.
But regardless, I think those two are just solid options. And of course, just from the non-civ pool civs, any civ that's decent on like hybrid land water maps seems good. The turtle ship dream, I feel like, is probably going to stay dead. And I guess just before we move on to the next step, I do want to point out that in this Civ pool, we do have Koreans who have yet to be played in ECL at all. The only other Civ that has yet to be played at all is Vietnamese. So potentially we can see some Koreans here, maybe. We'll have to see it in the 4v4. But we'll see.
I think it's more likely that we'll see them in the 4v4 because there they have to pick it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure we will see them in any of those games. But maybe some teams want to prepare something to catch the other teams off guard. You never know.
Oh yeah, definitely. But moving on to our snowy map, we have Mount Fuji. And what do you think of this map, Roach? Because I don't think we've seen it before. in a
I don't
tournament.
think so either. It, I guess it is kind of similar to Kilimanjaro, I guess. We've seen that before, just that you have standard resources here, and you have also lots of wood on the outside, which you don't necessarily have on Kilimanjaro, right? But the same concept of the one big hill in the middle that you need to take control of. And I really like that element because let's see how the games turn out. I also thought that Dry River would be really great. Maybe those games will be really one-sided because once one team gets control of the hill, they can always push down and have the advantage. That could be a problem. Then again, the hill is so big that should always be a way for the other team to try to get back on the hill and reconquer it. But it will be a lot of maneuvering of the armies again and making sure to position yourself in the right spot, building castles in the right areas, fighting on top, taking control there, which I really always enjoy in those games.
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually think this map is just like a better version of Kilimanjaro. You do
Mm-hmm.
have your standard starting resources. I'm pretty sure, at least pretty close to standard. And yeah, I was actually just about to say there, Nomer. In on the mountaintop, you have most of the stone on the map, and then you sort of like on the hill side, like the the slope, I guess you could say, you have all of the like extra golds and some of the extra stones as well. But it's not like a gold rush sort of thing where it's like everything's in a big pile in the middle. It's just kind of spread out. But there's definitely incentive in terms of a lot of the mineral resources for being up on the mountain.
All right, then I guess we. Oh, let's talk about the sieves then
Yeah,
before we go on to the
I
next.
was gonna let you do that.
Yeah, yeah, I remembered then just in time. So I'm really not sure how exactly that would play out. I think you definitely, well, you always in a 2v2, you usually go for one cavalry civ and one archer civ, right? And especially, I think especially here, mobility is important, so you can get around the army and take the high ground and be sure to um, get in the right position here. But I also think
What do you think of like
that civ
Burmese here?
that's something I want to say as well now, that civs that need castles and want to produce unique units from castles could, if they have other options as well, and Burmese do, could be really strong on that map. Trying to get castles up on the top there, taking control of the stone.
Yes, it is mostly stone in the middle,
Yeah.
like on the actual mountaintop, and it's a mix of gold and stone on the slopes. But yeah, I think I'm definitely looking forward to this map. I think it should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I agree there.
This map may be familiar to some of you. It is definitely an old school map. It is called Twin Puddles, and as you can see, it's a fairly standard looking land map in terms of land and tree distribution around the middle, but of course you do have the trees all around the edges that give you plenty of long-term wood income, as well as, of course, the namesake of the map, the twin puddles on each side of the map. Plenty of fish for lots of times fairly safe fishing if you can take control of the water.
Yeah, it's really interesting, or really interesting will be how the players will actually spawn, because it can happen that you spawn in between the puddles. That way, each player has to, on the flank, has to go for a water fight against their opposing player there, fighting for for their own pond. But it could also be that the pond is spawning in their back, right? And they will have safe fish. So that's something definitely teams need to prepare for either way. Um, that's a really interesting aspect about the map. And just in general, I like it. It's a hybrid map that doesn't take too much focus on water fights. Most of the time, you have a big land army and, well, lots of wood, so that should never run out, obviously.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I was
I
just
actually
yeah. You're very sort of cutting in and out sort of thing.
okay, but I'm not sure that must be. I'm using a headset, so I'm always at the same distance from the mic. So I'm not sure.
It's probably
Must be the
your voice
connection then.
threshold for like what your mic is picking up.
Maybe I've had it set up for. Um,
Um, I mean, you sounded fine, like just right there. So,
Okay.
um,
Well, I'll try to talk a bit quieter. Maybe then it works out better.
but yeah, I think this is a really good map though for Japanese, just
Hmm.
because you really can get a decent fish boom in a lot of situations.
Yep.
And then beyond that, Japanese generally in Archer Civ, pick a good cavalry Civ with that, Franks or something. I think that should be pretty good.
I'm excited for that map, not only for 2v2, but also for 4v4, because I've seen at least one of the best AOC team games I've seen on that map. And that was back in the Was Coming tournament in the grand final between Tyrant Legends and Tyrant Warlords.
Oh yeah.
And Tyrant Legends had they were trading from like the one corner to another corner, and then that trade was raided. So they changed the whole trade around, traded from the one corner was still the same, and then traded to another corner, and then that side was raided. So they redistributed the trade again the other way around. Really impressive and a really strong game. Can really, um, yeah.
Yeah, the puddles kind of funnel you a little bit towards the middle of the map, and
Hmm.
that's further exacerbated by the trees surrounding the edge of the map. So you can see a lot of really long epic games on this map. So
Yep.
it's probably the most defensive, at least in terms of like seeing the longest games of the map pool.
Okay, then let's go to the
Chaos Pit.
Chaos Pit, the
This is
next map.
another old school map. Uh, it's not like technically a standard map, but it's been around for a while. It's very atypical, so I should probably explain how it works. You start, as you can see there in the screenshot, everyone's very close together in the center of the map where there is no gold or stone. Just have a lot of hunt and berries and stuff, but you're very close together, so you see a lot of early scout slash trash unit wars, and you actually have to chop your way through the forest to escape the chaos pit, where you find most of the rest of the wood and all of the golden stone. So, what do you think we'll see on this crazy map?
That will be really interesting. Earlier, when we were talking about Koreans, I was thinking that maybe a team tries to go for Koreans here and tries to surprise the opponent. I'm not sure though if the ECL version actually has stone in the crater. Usually, I think it was that each player had two stone piles or two tiles of stone, not two stone piles, but two tiles of stone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if the ECL version does have
I'm
that.
trying to remember from loading up the map. I don't think so. Otherwise, that would very likely degenerate into a trush fest, especially with the current meta. But
Yeah,
if there is
but
stone, definitely do look out for Koreans and of course Mongols. Good civ for this map. Celts can chop through the wood quickly.
yeah. And just in general, civs that
Huns.
have good good scouts, Byzantines is sometimes a pick players want to take just because they can go for lots of cheap skirmishes in the middle until they can transition to archers later on. Um, Hans obviously is really strong. I I we probably won't see that, but I think it's interesting. You could go for Ethiopians, and the additional gold you get could actually give you could actually go for man at arms, while anyone else couldn't go for man at arms because then they can't do loom or don't get fletching. While
Oh,
Ethiopians could go for man at arms if they delay loom till
yeah, you just have to
feudal
delay
age.
loom until you get to the feudal age, but that
Yeah,
sounds like an interesting strategy in the making. I hadn't thought of that before. That sounds cool.
probably players won't do it, but it would be interesting to see that and then see players surprised by Man at Arms suddenly, and they won't have a good counter to them because they can't build archers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that should be really cool. Definitely excited to see how this map plays out.
Oh,
And
and another
oh,
thing you
go
need to
ahead.
keep in mind, if one team cuts out first, we've seen it before, people running around to the other side and then building towers on the point where their opponents are cutting if they're not out yet,
Oh yeah,
to
definitely.
deny them getting out.
Expect to see lots and lots of crazy games on this map if it gets played,
Oh yeah, for
which
sure.
is unlikely, but there's always hope. Our last map is our token water map. It is the map contest winner, and it is Team Islands with some shallows.
Yeah. I have to say I'm not too excited for that map. But let's see how it will play out. I think it will just be fairly similar to standard Team Islands because you can wall off the shallows. Obviously, you have the middle shallows, the cross you can see. Those are a bit further away, but you will go there and wall them off, and then it will be water control anyway.
Yeah, you can see that the distance between the two islands is, I think, long enough that compared to like Highland, which might be another point of comparison, it's just a little too far to walk across. Exposing your units on the shallows. And then, of course, you do have, again, in comparison to Highland, the water stretching all the way around the edge of the map. So, again, putting more emphasis on the water. So I think we should be seeing pretty standard Team Islands water stuff, but with some early walling.
On top of that, you need to think on Highland, you have the possibility to start trapping from the other side. You can build castles to control the water completely to make sure there are not any ships. Then you trap the other side, make the wall open, you can walk over there. It doesn't seem like, if you look at the map this way, that this will be possible here. You won't be able to control the whole water part in the middle with castles, and you can't get rid of those castles with traps from the other side, so you need to go water to get rid of those castles or transport rams, etc. So
could be seeing
yeah,
some
I think
cannon galleons here.
exactly, but that is water again, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it seems like everything seems to point onto very standard water play. But let's see, maybe some players will try to sneak in the middle a villager. Try to do that. You don't need to go for Dark Edge Transport if you manage to sneak a villager fairly early through the middle. It's pretty high risk though.
Yeah, definitely. Might see it a little bit though, especially from like the Chinese teams. Yeah, like you were saying, we can definitely see some early sneaking, especially since you don't need to invest in the dock at all. So maybe that can be an interesting point, but we'll have to see how this plays out. Obviously, it's never been seen before in competitive play.
Yeah. Again, Civs, Portuguese is the #1 pick, I'd say.
Japanese.
Maybe Japanese then obviously as well, really good from the Civ pool. I think we won't see any of the other Civs because those two Civs won't have that much use in the other maps, I guess. Maybe Twin Puddles, but
then you
it's
just
not like that.
one.
Hmm?
Since you just pick one civ from the civ pool, you just
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So you will always have one of those left.
If
then
not,
outside of that,
Khmer have a good navy, and the not building requirement thing might be helpful, maybe.
Maybe, but it's not on water maps usually because you need all the buildings anyway, right? To click up. If you don't go for a sneaky strategy with sneaking a villager, then it might be worth it to go for Khmer. Then it's rather obvious. But other than that, you need 2 buildings anyway to click up. If you go to Feudal Age, maybe in Castle, the only bonus you have is if you get landed, you can put down an archery range right away or stable without a barracks, or not building the market and going up to Castle Age. Other than that, to Feudal Age, early Feudal, it doesn't give you any advantage.
Yeah, probably not. But those are the maps, guys. Those are all 7 maps. And yeah, let us, look at these maps in the context of the brackets. Perfect segue.
Wonderful.
But yeah, first up we have. Okay, so first I guess I should mention that for these brackets, the 2 players for each team are locked. Like you can't just be switching in and out.
Yeah, good point.
Also, to quickly answer your question, Nomer, the thing with Goths is they don't have any early eco bonuses, and they're not good on water. So if you're going for like an early drush, you might as well go for like, I don't know,
joined your
Aztecs
channel
or something.
User left your channel.
God.
Good thing.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, actually, Goths are good on water when it comes to deathmatch. they're quite often picked there,
Yeah,
but then we already have all the upgrades.
exactly. It's a matter of eco, I think, and you just
Yeah.
want to pick civs with early eco. But anyway, moving on to these teams, we have first the two bottom teams, Brazucas and Heresy, have Miguel and Riet for Brazucas, and the Irish kosher brothers, Matthias and Timotheus, for Heresy. What do you think of this match?
Quite interesting. I think Matthias and Timotheus definitely have the potential. Being brothers, Matthias is a good player as well. If he gets a good day, he can perform really well. And I think we've seen in especially like the last stage that they can prepare strategies, good strategies, and prepare for their matches. So Sukas should definitely not underestimate them, but obviously Miguel and Riet are the favorites here.
Yeah, but Brazucas has not failed to disappoint so far, so
That is very true.
so I really think that if you're Brazucas here, you are looking to win this entire thing. Miguel and Riet, two incredibly strong players. They have a ton of history together, and I think you're really going to be looking for these two to really. This is, I think, their big moment, so to say. But
Yep.
I would favor Bazookas on paper. Suomi versus SY. Max plus Veles, very like those two play 2v2s all the time. Not at all surprising. And then Yo plus Shuainu slash Yinghua. What do you think of these two duos?
Well, Max and Villas definitely really strong. We've seen Suomi's play in 2v2s really strong as well as in bigger team games. And Max is also, we've seen that before in some 1v1 tournaments, King of the Desert, for example, a strong 1v1 player. And 2v2 sometimes comes down to a bit more 1v1 style on each flank. Players want to work together and need to work together, but especially at the start, you sometimes have more of 1v1 facing off there with each other.
Yeah, definitely.
And then on the other side, Yo, obviously, who performed really well for SY, is just one of the top players, one of the most well-known players, being really good. I'm not sure how much he played with Yinghua in the past. Probably still a ton, but I'm not sure how
They play
well
together
they
a
are
ton.
prepared in 2v2s.
Not as much as Yo and Lix, but
yeah,
Yinghua's been on SY forever, so
yeah, he's been there. Yeah.
I think it should be a
So
really close match.
exactly what I want to say. Should be a really close and interesting match there. Yeah.
Then, of course, the big headliner match, AM versus Secret again. Blame Robo for having these two teams always seem to meet up in the earlier parts of the tournament. But MBL plus Leary versus Viper and Doubt. I mean, this would just be an amazing best of three, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm really looking forward to that. The Vibe and Doubt, obviously, they are playing for such a long time, playing together since Tyrant started. MBL and Leary, just the core with a heart of AM. So they've been playing a lot together as well. And the last time, a lot were for both teams, AM and Secret. The last 2v2, lots of people were expecting a lot of those two teams in the 2v2s, and both of them didn't perform. And so I'm sure they have their pride and want to show that they can actually perform well in 2v2s and want to go far, but one of them will go out.
Yeah, it's a shame, really, but obviously, it's just the level of play in this tournament is so high that
Yep.
just bound to happen. And then finally, Frantic, Timid plus Really Diao, which is Vivi, versus ACCM plus it's cut off, but Stark, the famous Vietnamese player Stark. I feel like this should be pretty straightforward for Tim and Vivi, right?
I think so as well.
I
I
mean,
think it's really interesting though when you look at all of the players in all the 2v2 teams. One of the players we've seen all the 2v2 teams played in the previous 2v2 before, and you most of the time say, okay, that's either their strongest player they have or maybe their team captain. While for Vietnam, Beck is the strongest player, and they are starting now with ACCM and Stark, which most of the people wouldn't have expected.
Yeah, it seems like VNA is really wanting to play the long game, so to say, in terms of ensuring that they have like high level players even at the very end. And since they seem to be like on the bubble of being able to possibly make it to the finals if they start winning it towards the end, maybe they're gonna try
Mm,
and like run the teams out of good play, like not like good players, they're all good, but like top players. Um,
yeah,
and like have some strong finishes at the end. Like Viper
yeah,
can't play in any more 2v2 events after this.
yeah, exactly. So next 2v2 or the one after that, ACCM and Beck, we will definitely see them play together
Yeah,
before,
definitely.
or well, definitely. Who knows? Maybe they will play. Maybe Beck will play with Stark, and ACCM will play with Stray Dog.
uh,
But
yeah,
well, not Stray Dog,
uh,
obviously, but yeah,
yellow slash say
yeah,
my name or
yellow.
cool.
Yeah. I meant yeah.
That's
Exactly. I meant to say my name. Yeah.
anyway. With those with those matches, prediction time. See see who can take the edge between the the two of us in our most epic of battles. Um, Bazookas versus Heresy. Who are you? What are you calling?
Um, Heresy surprised me this time, or let's say the last event, and I think they can take a game. They can do something there, but still, Miguel and Riyad are just so strong. Especially Miguel is such a good team game player. I have to give it to Brazucas. Probably even 2-0.
Yeah, I was gonna give it a 2-0 for Bazookas as well. But I feel like it's the next one's a lot harder to call. Suomi versus SY. I feel like we'll
Oh,
probably
for
have
sure.
something different here. What are you thinking?
Uh, it's it's really hard for me because let me take a quick look at the maps again. I
Uh,
feel like with those maps, uh, you know what? Why not? Let's go for Suomi here, 2-1.
yeah, I think 2-1 is kind of logical for such a close, interesting match. But I'm actually gonna give it to SY here. I think they've just shown that their level of consistency is incredible, and I think that SY, I mean Yo and Yinghua are going to be good enough to sort of exploit the potential weaknesses in Suomi's very sort of methodical gameplay. Like they can
Yep.
definitely turn on the aggression if need be. So that's my rationale for there. But I would not be surprised to see it go the other way. Then we
Well,
oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah, exactly. Then we have the big matchup, AM versus Secret, and that one is really hard to call as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think I will actually go with AM here, just because you never know, right? It's a tournament and it's different to show matches, but the last show matches went in favor of AM, I think, and they just performed really well. I mean, they won the whole thing and they performed really well in the last stage, while Secret wasn't that prepared. Maybe their focus is somewhere else, a bit somewhere else. So I think AM will take it. I have to go 2-1 anyway, though. It's just I don't want to be completely wrong, so 2-1 it is.
Yeah, I also think 2-1, but not just to be contrarian, but I actually do think it's going to be Secret 2-1. I think that maybe MBL plus Leary is a higher like average skill level, like a little bit than Viper Doubt in a team game setting. But I think that Viper and Doubt have the history of playing together. They have the coordination and they know when to win when it counts, so to say. So I think it's going to go to them 2-1. And last one, do you think Frantic 2-0 VNA?
Yeah, probably.
uh,
Depends on the map, though. ACCM and Stark definitely have a potential. I could see them on, I don't know, Chaos Pit,
mm-hmm.
um, doing something. Although Tim and Vivi also have potential for those kind of maps. I just see Stark booming away and just getting one TC up after another, moving his economy again and again and again, and somehow getting through. Who knows?
Yeah, that mix of four players, I think, can at least produce some interesting games, if nothing else. But yeah, okay. For the grand winner, who's gonna win this next 2v2 event?
If I say AM is winning here, I I think if they win against Secret in the 2v2, I think they will take it all. Yeah. It's so hard. It's so hard. I could see a lot of other teams doing it as well here with
Yeah,
those lineups, but let's just go with AM.
I am gonna go. I'm gonna be bold, be brave, and I'm gonna say Brazucas. I think that they really need to win this event, and if Miguel and Riot have their motivation, I think they're just insanely scary, and I think that having Heresy as their first opponent helps them a lot in terms of just one less
Mm,
scary opponent to face. But again, it could be incredibly close. I can see, you know, to be honest, I can see every team except like Heresy and VNA winning this whole thing.
yeah, but I agree with that. But I also have to say that Brazucas is for me a bit between those teams and the other teams. Also, they definitely have the potential, but I'm just not sure how good Miguel and Riyad are at the moment. And um, the last 1v1 tournaments didn't go too well for Miguel, I think, or he wasn't too happy with those. So let's see. Obviously, it's a 2v2 tournament here, and I just think I they will get again come against either Suomi or SY in the semifinals already, and I think this will already be incredibly hard, and then they will face a really strong team in the finals. So they are a bit low for me, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I definitely don't think it's like an obvious pick at all, but I just think that especially because like to me everything is set up well for Bazookas to have their sort of breakout performance that they've really
Yeah,
lacked so far. So that's why I'm
yeah.
giving it to them, and I just definitely think they have the potential to do that.
Oh yeah, the potential for sure. That's true. I agree there.
Um, but yeah, with those done, just any sort of last thoughts on 2v2?
Um, Not exactly. I do have to say I'm looking forward to 2v2 now again. We had two 3v3s in the last three stages and a 1v1. Um, Looking forward to that. After that, we always also will obviously really get the 4v4. Um, Looking forward to that as well. Just in general, the stage. Maybe not my most favorite maps in this stage, but there are some that have the potential to bring good games, and this bracket looks really nice as well. So yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty excited as well. Personally, 2v2s are my favorite mode to both watch and play. I just think there's the most interesting dynamic between like Civ duos and team play like possibilities. Uh, and I don't know, I just like playing them and I like watching them. So I'm always excited for a 2v2 tournament. And there are a few new maps in here, or just interesting maps that I'm excited to see these super high skill level people play on. Um, so with that out of the way, uh, we'll open this up to a few questions if you guys have any in chat for either me or Roach.
yep.
Um, and
Uh,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. While we wait for that, I do have now. Let's yeah, come up with a question, guys. But I do have to agree with you that 2v2 is definitely is a point that I I played a lot of 2v2s myself, and I really enjoy playing them. So that's a good point of view that this makes it more interesting to watch them as well, because you can compare how are really pro players, how are they doing it, what are their strategies, etc. So it's always interesting to be able to compare yourself and your gameplay with what's happening. While I don't have that much experience in 3v3s and 4v4s, for example.
Yeah, I feel like especially in 2v2s, you kind of have like the most agency in how well your team does because there's just the two of you. Um, So it's like it feels like a 1v1 where it's like all the pressure's on, but you also have the dynamic of just having a teammate and having that trade available to you in the late game. Really sort of mixes things up, and I really enjoy it.
Yep.
But you know, if any of you waiting for any of you to, if you have any questions, just a couple of announcements. One, Roach is eventually going to get a webcam, so that's going to be nice.
Exactly, it's already ordered.
Already ordered. Oh boy! So
on its way.
You'll have another pretty face to look at with the next podcast, which should be coming up after the conclusion of the 2v2 event, but before the 4v4 event. That's at least the idea right now. Oh yeah, the actual ECL 2v2 will be the 15th of December, so a week from tomorrow, and then the following Saturday. And of course, check out NAC2 matches that are going on, and any KOTD2 starts. I mean, we're going to have a podcast before then, but definitely keep an eye out for that. But definitely, I think the other big thing is NAC2 matches going on right now.
Yep. And yes, that was, by the way, Sir Lawrence, that was why it took me such a long time to get a webcam, because like underwater webcams are hard to get that actually works. So.
Ripperino, but you know, you'll get it eventually.
Now I will have my Ray cam. Yeah.
There you go. Also, Panth, worst Civ is not Malay. The worst Civ is Khmer. Easy.
Oh, you think?
I just don't like playing Khmer. I don't actually think they're the worst Civ. I just think they're the worst Civ.
I do agree that I didn't like Khmer at the start either. But I have to say, I do enjoy them now. Or not enjoy, but I think they have potential. And I think it's not one of the civs I get, and I think, oh, nice, I got Khmer. How wonderful. But
unless you pocket team game.
Unless yeah. But I think it's I have fun playing the civ, at least nowadays. What I really don't enjoy is when I get Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And Malay as well. I don't like Malay actually. I know they have potential to be good, but I tend to never know what to do with Malay.
Yeah, Malay are super awkward in the early game, I feel, because you can't really go for like men-at-arms comfortably, so I feel like you're just a little bit vulnerable to early aggression.
Yeah.
And Vietnamese, they're not fun, or they're not great, but I actually just played a game as Vietnamese yesterday. I mean, just 1v1 Arabia. And I got to the point where I had Rattan Archer plus Elite Battle Elephant, and I just felt on top of the world. I couldn't lose. Like, that is like the scariest army comp ever.
Yeah, that's true. If you get to that part, it's really nice to have either Rattan Archers or even Imperial Skirmishers.
Yeah, I did both.
With the Elite Battle Elephants. That's true if you get to that point. Especially if you are against any Meso civs.
Oh yeah,
it's wonderful.
How come those civs aren't in the pool? I wasn't in the civ selection process, and neither was Roach. But
yeah. Also, there will be the Southeast Asian stage where they are in that pool. You can obviously debate that in the East Asian stage they should be in there as well, but it's not like this is the last Asian part of the whole tournament, right?
Yeah, and it's not like you have players unable to pick civs other than the ones in the civ pool. It just means we'll see the civ pool civs a bit more often. So we'll be able to see other civs here and there.
Burmese is actually in the civ pool.
Yes, they are. Here, I can actually bring them that up for you guys real quick. I don't know why the Swomy thing's there. But yeah, those are the civs.
Oh, I can I can also see Brazucas and Heresy for some reason on the screen.
Oh, well, that's weird.
It is. OBS is weird.
OBS is weird. Anyway, I think that will just about wrap it up for all of us, or both of us. But hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much to everyone tuning in. Any last thoughts, shout-outs, Roach?
Well, not particularly. Well, check out your channel, I guess. Only was casting a lot, so do that.
Yeah.
Other than that, don't have too much to say.
Yeah. I guess I don't either. I really enjoy doing the podcast. I think it's really fun to analyze and talk about these matches. Roach, thanks for the sub, Roach.
No problem.
But yeah, hope you guys all enjoyed. Sorry for the stray technical issues. It's a learning experience for all involved, and this is only our second podcast. But I think that it's a good thing that we're getting going, and it's only going to get better with each
Oh yeah.
passing podcast. And I enjoy doing it. I hope Roach does too. I think he
Oh,
does.
definitely. And to be fair, I think the issue with Discord being down, I
Yeah.
think TeamSpeak wasn't that just perfect for us. Like Discord worked out a little bit better last time. We will do it next time again, and then hopefully we'll be all right.
Yeah. But with that, thanks everyone for tuning in. I can't host anybody because I'm not like logged into Twitch as Escape or whatever. So unless Zach is here, uh, kind of can't do that. So go watch another Age of Empires stream. And yeah, see you guys next time.